ACC. We are here for term 3 and we are looking at the topic of consumerism all term, how consumerism impacts every kind of aspect and moment of our lives. Today, we're looking at the idea of stewardship, the biblical idea of stewardship. Now, stewardship or being a steward is not a word that we use very often anymore. I think the only time I hear it used is when I'm on a flight, which I haven't been on for ages because of COVID, but you talk about a flight steward or a stewardess. Now think about that. What is the job of a flight steward or a stewardess? Their job is to look after or to take care of the people in their possession or the people who are on their flight. So already we're getting the idea that a steward's job is to take care of something that is not theirs, a group of people that are under their care. That's their job. And that is kind of what the idea of stewardship is all about. If you think about it more broadly, not just a flight steward, but stewardship in general, or being a steward of something, is this. It's you taking care and responsibility for something that is not yours, something that belongs to someone else. Now, I have an experience of being a steward. It was a terrifying experience, actually. If you think about it, taking responsibility for things that are not yours is one of the most scary things that you will ever do. One time I was traveling overseas with some friends and we were in Italy, and they weren't long married. They'd been married for about 12 months and we were traveling with them, and they were about to go to Italy, to another country. Now, this country that they were going to has a really bad reputation for theft. In the country they were about to head to, apparently if you have really nice shoes or if you're wearing a beautiful diamond ring, you are likely, as a traveler, you're likely to get taken over on the side of the road by someone, a thief, and they will steal your shoes or they will steal your ring. Now, this friend of mine happens to be very, very wealthy that we were traveling with, and they were about to go to this other country and we were about to go home. And she had this massive diamond ring. The person she's married to is really wealthy, and she had a huge diamond ring. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, but someone had told me that diamond ring cost $30,000. So obviously, she's going to this new country and she doesn't want to take this diamond ring in case someone, steals it off her. So she gave it to me and she put it in my hand and she said, "Mitch, this is my diamond ring. I love it. It is precious to me. Could you please take care of it? Can you take it home and then give it to my mother?" I was thinking, can I say no? How can I say no to this? I don't want responsibility for this $30,000 ring. But I had to say yes. So Chris and I took this ring. And you should have seen the amount of stress that we went through. We were leaving the next day. I kid you not. That ring went from being on Kristen's finger to being in a necklace around my neck, to being in my underwear, to being in my socks. I was so terrified because I knew how precious and expensive this thing was, and I felt the responsibility of having to take care of it and get it back home to her mother. We got it back home to her mother, and the first thing we did as we got off the plane was went straight to their place. I pulled the thing out of my undies and gave it to her, and she said, "I will not be touching that until it's been Glen 20'd and cleaned." Anyway, that's a moment of stewardship where I understand that I am responsible for something that is not my own, and that I need to treat it with care and respect and use it in the way or use it in the way that the person who gave it to me intended. Now, here's the thing about stewardship in the Bible. What we learn is that every single human being, you, and particularly if you're a Christian or a follower of Jesus, you are a steward. You're a steward of the things that God has given you. And what has God given you? To help kind of answer this question, I want to go to a parable. This is a parable in Luke chapter 12. It's called the parable of the rich fool. I think this story tells us nearly everything we need to know about stewardship. Come with me and we'll take a look together. This is Luke chapter 12, verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, that's Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Just hold on, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. We're back. "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me judge and arbiter or divider between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told this parable. "The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, I have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded of you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God." Now, you're going to look at this story next week in your Connect groups with your teacher, and you're going to kind of unpack it a little bit. I just want to look at one little piece. It's just here in verse 16, and it goes like this. "And he told them this parable: the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest." Okay, so the question I want to look at is, what is the source of this man's wealth? How has this man become rich? Well, we're told right from the start that it's the ground. Another translation, oh, my camera's falling down. Hold on, I need to fix this up. Let's see whether that can hold. It says the ground of a certain rich man. Another translation might be the land of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. So right from the beginning, we're told that the source of this man's wealth is the land. Now, you notice what it doesn't say? It doesn't say this man became wealthy because he worked so hard. It doesn't say this man became wealthy because he was incredibly smart. Right at the beginning of this story, we're saying the source of his wealth is something else. It's the ground, or it's the land that produced his wealth. Now, how did the land produce the wealth? Well, yeah, sure, he had to till it, and he had to plant seeds, and he had to water it. But in the ancient mind, how did plants grow? Well, they grow because God rained on it, because God caused the sun to shine on it. Why did these plants grow? Why did he get a huge crop? It's because God was good to him. God sent the rain, and God sent the sun, and God even created the ground. So the source of this man's wealth is the land or the ground, which means the source of this man's wealth is God. Everything he has is a gift of God. And if you flick through the Old Testament, it reinforces this over and over again. All through the Old Testament, like in Leviticus 25, it says, you should not sell your land forever because the land is mine. That's what God says. The land is mine. He owns the land. In the Psalms, it says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. What's it saying right at the beginning of this story? Everything this man has, all of his wealth, all of his abundance are not his. They are God's. They come directly from God. So what is this man supposed to do? This man is supposed to be a steward. He is supposed to be looking after and taking care of the wealth that God has given him, the wealth from the ground, which is God's ground, the wealth that God provided through sun, through rain, and through fertile soils. This story is saying to us this, a very simple thing. If you are wealthy, whatever you have, it's not because you worked hard for it, although you may have. It's not because you're super intelligent. It's not because you particularly created it. Everything you have, my friends, is a gift of the good God. Everything you have. So really, everything we have, we are stewards of. I remember Malcolm Turnbull, the old Prime Minister, talked about this in an interview I saw him do once. He's quite a wealthy man, Malcolm Turnbull, and they were kind of asking him about his wealth. And he said, some people might think that I'm wealthy because I'm a hard worker. And he says, that's not true. He says, there's taxi drivers who are living kind of on the poverty line, who have worked so much harder than me, more hours and in a tougher job. He says, there's people all around the world who live in poverty who work harder than me. He says, why am I wealthy? He says, my wealth has been a gift. Now, Malcolm Turnbull is, I think, kind of a lapsed Catholic, but he's at least learnt the lesson of stewardship, hasn't he? That all the things that he has have been a gift to him. Now, if everything we have is a gift, if everything we have is God's, we have to begin to ask questions about how we use our resources, how we use the things that we have. I remember going to a youth event when I was a kid, and there was this fantastic preacher preaching, And I remember being mesmerized by this guy, and he had this fantastic line. Do you know what he said when I was a kid? I still remember it to this day. He said this. He said, if everything you have is a gift from God, then the question you ask is not how much I give, but how much do I keep for myself? Woohoo! Isn't that good? He says, if everything you have is a gift from God, the question you ask is not how much you keep, how much you give away, but rather how much you keep for yourself. How much does God want you to keep for yourself? Now, I know you guys don't have a lot of money. Maybe you're only kids. You might have, $50, in your piggy bank or something like that. So maybe a more pertinent question, another way to put it, would be, instead of thinking about all the things that you have, because you have things, you have stuff, God has given you stuff, and each one of those things is a gift from God. You might think it's a gift from your parents or a gift from a mate, but when you trace it right back to its source, it's a gift from God, my friends. The question maybe you have to ask is not how does this stuff benefit me, primarily, but how can all the stuff that I have benefit others? How can the things that I have be used for the good of others? Because all the way through the Bible, we're told that the land, the ground, is not just there for us, it's there for everyone. It's a gift to all of us, to all people, and should be used for the good of all people. That's stewardship, my friends. You've got a couple of activities, take a look at them, and we'll talk more in the coming weeks. Sorry this has to be a video, by the way. I would much prefer to be in person, but a video it is. Okay, grace and peace.